Hello, and you are all welcome to this segment of the Mayor of Casterbridge. I have already presented some videos and PPTs analyzing the chapters of the Mayor of Casterbridge. The book is divided into 45 chapters, and I have tried to to summarize those chapters and analyze them. Now, in this segment, I would like to discuss the character of the Mayor of Casterbridge, that is Michael Henchard, and his responsibility for the ultimate downfall of his life. The Mayor of Casterbridge is a tragic character. This is the first slide. The Mayor of Casterbridge is a tragic character. No one can deny that this character is one of the most typical Hardian characters who are tragic in nature, and Thomas Hardy has always been known for his tragedies. His tragedies are tragic novels. Now, the characters of his novels make these books great tragedies, and we still enjoy these books. Tragedy or tragic characters are those characters who suffer tremendous pain and ultimate downfall in life, and sometimes very poor death. Sometimes they owe to their actions and sometimes to their destiny. In this book, The Mayor of Casterbridge, his life, we see how he suffers. It is a story of rags to riches and then back to riches to rags. He is a hairdresser, an agricultural laborer, and from that position he rises up to the mayor of the town Casterbridge, and then he comes down to again to his former occupation. Is he responsible for whatever has occurred in his life, or is there anything else which is beyond our control or his control? Now, here we need to remember that Thomas Hardy always believed in the supremacy of fate. Fate is fate or destiny, whichever way you call it. This is a force which is beyond anybody's control. Even it is beyond the control of Michael Henchard. There are events which were unpredicted or unpredictable, and those spelled havoc in the life of Michael Henchard. But similarly and conversely, not similarly, Thomas and Michael Henchard took some decisions, acted such ways which proved really disastrous for him. Man is the maker of his own fortune. And no matter how far or how much we say that destiny plays a role, it does. But by and large, we need to remember that in everybody's life, as well as in the life of Michael Henchard, his own actions are to a large extent responsible. That is why we often say man is the maker of his own fortune. Hardy always believed in the dominance of fate, but no story can stand without a clear correlation between action and consequence. Michael Henchard, perhaps unlike many characters of Hardy, draws his own character by taking momentous decisions in life. His fall and subsequent death largely owes to his own doings. Therefore, no matter how far we blame Henchard's poor luck in one or two incidents, he is by and large gets what he deserves. Now, here we need to remember that Michael Henchard's character is unlike many other characters of Thomas Hardy. If I can draw a parallel with Tess from Tess the D'Urbervilles, in that book, Tess the D'Urbervilles, the character of Tess is just a puppet. There are tragedies which occur in her life which have always been beyond her control. But in the case of Mayor of Casterbridge, Michael Henchard, who is a stout man, who is a self-made man, everything is not destiny. There are things which he could have controlled, or which he could have manipulated to his advantage, which he did not. The consequences of Henchard's deed. The greatest mistakes in this is, of course, the sale of wife. Though done in an intoxicated state of mind, this unnatural act, though not completely rare in Dorset history, makes him pay quite dearly. He burns in remorse and later when exposed by the Formative woman in his haunting past destroys his fame in Casterbridge. And his one singular act is strong enough, this singular act, to hasten his fall. Now, his downfall began with this singular event, and that is the sale of wife. Now, here, as I have said in this slide, that sale of wife was certainly rare, but not absolutely unprecedented, because Thomas Hardy came across such an incident in the chronicles of Dorset, and from there he got the inspiration. But it is quite unnatural, it is almost unbelievable. Not only in 21st century, but even in the early part of 19th century, such incidents were reprehensible and of course very rare. Michael Henchard does the deed, and he remains silent for years, for over 18 years. And perhaps he would have remained silent till the last breath of his life if he hadn't come across this strange woman, the Formative woman, who makes her reappearance in the story at a court, quite ironically, facing Michael Henchard, who is supposed to deliver a judgment upon her case. And she has been brought to the court for some public nuisance, which is quite a trivial offence. But while the table turns upon Henchard, it is the Henchard who is rather accused instead of eventually than the Formative woman, and the Formative woman discloses things. But if the Formative woman didn't arrive, then perhaps Henchard's life would have been different. Of course, it would have been different. But here we need to remember that Michael Henchard could have easily denied that charge. And secondly, this reappearance of the Formative woman is a bit dramatic. I mean, it is very hard to believe. It is kind of an exaggerated representation of characters. But nevertheless, I mean, such incidents do occur. That is how a writer shapes his story. But here is the moment when Michael Henchard is publicly disgraced. His actual downfall begins. So what is the reason? The reason is nothing but sale of his own wife along with his only daughter. The deed was done in a state of abnormal mindset, when he was so inebriated. He was he was drunk. But even then, this cannot be pardoned anyway. He cannot be condoned. And this is the first act, and perhaps the gravest act in Michael Henchard's life, which costs him almost everything. Henchard's jealousy for Farfrae. Henchard starts liking Farfrae all of a sudden. I mean, they meet almost by an accident. He raises him in business, but when his business card stoops down and Farfrae's goes up, he feels jealous of him. The jealousy enhances when Farfrae becomes his rival, in love too. Had he taken things tactfully, you would have not perhaps seen his downfall. Very true. And even on the day of royal visit, Henchard behaves quite madly. His stubbornness costs him the confidence of the local traders in him too. This is very true. The relationship between Henchard and Farfrae was very smooth and very cordial. It was Henchard who took the initiative to build the relationship, a very good friendly relationship between them. It was Henchard who promoted Farfrae in his career. Of course, Henchard needed such a man, because Henchard, after all, was a semi-literate man. He didn't know the technicalities of bookkeeping and stocks, etc. However, he had a very good eye for his produce, that is agricultural, corn, roots, etc. But he needed a manager at one critical juncture when people were complaining about him of poor quality of grains, etc. And his business was also expanding. He didn't have time, so he, for his own interest, appointed Farfrae, and Farfrae was also a very clever man. But things started deteriorating when Henchard found a rival in Farfrae, and even to worsen matters, Farfrae became his rival in love too, when he fell in love with Lucetta, the same woman who was courted by Henchard. But all these things could have been taken very, tactfully. They dealt with very tactfully, no doubt about it. It was Michael Henchard who enraged Farfrae, and he step by step, by many incidents, soured the relationship between between Farfrae and himself. So these things could have been averted, and whatever he lost in his life was immediately gained by Farfrae. This is a kind of a stupid move, I think. His lack of tactfulness, though he is a very successful man, so his lack of tact here costs him quite badly. A slow lover, we can say that even in the field of love affairs, he was not as fast or not as prompt at times as he could have been. Henchard's mistakes include one, sluggishness in courting Lucetta, his love, when she has installed herself in Casterbridge. Henchard could have easily taken her back, but his doubts and differences eventually gave Farfrae a chance, who immediately capitalized upon Lucetta's infatuation for him. Yes, this lost love could have been revived. Yes, when Henchard found his lost wife Susan and the daughter, he immediately took the decision of remarrying Susan and keep Elizabeth Jane. But Susan also died in the course of time, and when Susan died, he could have been Michael Henchard could have been even more proactive to win back Lucetta, and he just missed the opportunity of getting back Lucetta in his life. And Lucetta didn't sit idle; she found another lover in her life, and she found Farfrae. Farfrae also took that opportunity. So even in the case of love affair, which disappointed Henchard very badly after the death of Susan, very much owes to lack of tact or lack of pace in Michael Henchard's acts. His unpredictable temper. Now, yes, this has always been noticed in this story, that Michael Henchard has been a man of a rash, sometimes irresponsible and very impetuous disposition. Michael Henchard is a victim of his own mood swings. He is impetuous and sometimes very hasty. When he learns that Elizabeth Jane is not his real daughter, he suddenly changes his approach. Suddenly his mood, his approach to Elizabeth Jane changes. He, in a fit of anger, unduly punishes one of his farm workers. He again lies to Newson, telling him that Elizabeth is no more. Yes, in one event, he very badly and almost in a state of fury, excessive fury, he maltreats one of his farm workers, and the incident was so severe that Farfrae had to intervene, and by the help of his intervention, things became normal. And even in many cases, we have seen that his behavior was not as calm as perhaps we can expect from Michael Henchard, and especially then when it is juxtaposed to Farfrae's behavior. Farfrae is cool as cucumber. He never loses his patience, his calm. He has greater and deeper tact than Michael Henchard. And even when Michael Henchard came to know that Elizabeth Jane is not his real daughter, but she is the daughter of the former sailor, suddenly his approach changes. His warmth and affection suddenly starts dying down, which was not taken very in a very good mood by Elizabeth Jane. So this is another shortcoming of Henchard. Henchard lies to Newson that Elizabeth Jane is dead, and Elizabeth Jane comes to know, and when she comes to know, she certainly doesn't feel very well to and very compassionate and sympathetic to Henchard, the foster father, as she was. So these are wrong moves on part of Michael Henchard. He in the latter part of his life, he at all costs should have tried to retain his stepdaughter, of course, Elizabeth Jane, which he failed to do, and that is how he distanced himself from Elizabeth Jane. Yet another act and its consequences. The visit of the royal personage and Henchard's display of eccentricity is noticed by everybody. Yes, this is one incident. Of course, he is publicly disgraced and later seeks revenge upon Farfrae by inviting him to a duel. These are just signs of Henchard's loss of mental balance, which causes his eventual downfall in life. When there happens a royal visit in Casterbridge, actually this incident not fictitious. There was an incident in the 19th century. It was most likely Prince Albert who paid a visit to that part of the land. Michael Henchard, in almost madly and in a most appropriate way, he behaved. So he wanted to be the party of that, the welcoming party, the people who welcomed the royal personage. He forgot that he had been the mayor, but not the current mayor. So his madness, his improper behavior drew everybody's disrespect, and it didn't go down very well with Farfrae either. Again, a rash behavior, a very restless, irresponsible way to behave, especially then when he was nobody. He failed to understand that his position was gone. And that is the end of this presentation. It has been very brief, but these are these very few points. I hope anybody who has read the book thoroughly can understand the plot, and these are the points that one need to remember while answering such a question. There are other points which brought down tragedy upon Michael Henchard, but those are the reasons which we call fate or destiny, which were certainly not under the control of Michael Henchard. But these are the points which I have just mentioned, quite main cardinal points, which are the shortcomings and the flaws in the character of Michael Henchard. I hope my presentation has been fruitful to you, and that's it for today. I will be coming up with one or two more such analysis in the coming days. Thank you.